Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Digital Marketing Podcast. Hi, Alex. How was your day so far?
It's a very good day, actually. Thanks for asking. How's yours?
Mine,
How's your morning? You just got started.
I got my workout in, and I was excited to have this episode. So, why don't we get started, Alex? And I want to get started by discussing some of the principles of SEO because today we're discussing a very interesting topics in regard of what we could define a new era of SEO. But am I wrong in saying that no matter what comes to play, generative AI, Reddit, TikTok, YouTube, it all comes down to getting the basics right with SEO, right? Because, you can develop techniques by channel, of course, and those techniques need to have specific things in place. But without the basics being right, we can essentially say that none of that matters, right?
100%. I guess trying to use layman terms. SEO is to ensure that you're being discovered properly. Because if you're not being discovered, you can't be indexed, meaning being part of the search engine sort of ranking result page. And then you have another element which has to do with sort of user experience, which is ultimately what end users would like to have. So you're being indexed, you have a good user experience, meaning loading time is very important here. And then it's relevance. And then in this big matrix, big world, is to ensure that you can prove to others, meaning in this particular case, Google, that you have other people, meaning websites, that link to you as a trusted source. And if you don't, if you have those, you have a pretty solid sort of foundation to work off.
And Alex, what's interesting in these days, a lot of the questions I see online and on blogs are all about, this new feature that you see on Google where you ask something and they pull up the AI generated response, and then that response has links to websites, right? Now, it is not very clear how to rank for that, but essentially, what my common sense would say is that you rank for those generative responses by doing exactly what you would do if you wanted to rank off first page. So essentially, unique, useful content, proper backlink strategy, having a good authority on the link. Is that what you see is getting people in there?
I mean, mm, I think that there are still so early, like the sort of this overview, the AI overview sort of blurb, and it's still sort of not 100% certain what sort of works. But I think we are starting to. I'm started seeing cases where if we're working with useful content, because I think again Google has done all these updates. We've featured them in prior episodes.
Yeah.
We don't have to go down that route, but I think principles of experience, expertise, authority, and trust, and what that sort of indirectly says that you have unique, helpful content. If you're able to sort of push that out and then you have proper schema on your website, so structured data, so Google sort of knows what is what, and you will most likely be captured as a featured snippet. And if you're being captured as a featured snippet, the likeliness of you sort of being put into an AI overview increases.
But your domain authority does have a play into that, right? Because Google is just not going to place any link in there, right?
I think having by working on these EAT principles will help you to sort of fast forward your domain ranking.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's what my feeling, and that, again, this is just my personal experience. When I get those AI generated results, I tend to read them more attentively. I almost trust them more than the search results because, first you get the ads and then you get all the spammy first pagers. So I kind of think like a link in there for me is more trustworthy, even though it's generated by machine, but because the initial part of the conversation is actually answering my question and providing me information, right? So they do seem to be more valuable. And actually, those are for top of page now because they show up before paid, they show up before everything, right?
And I mean, I think that's the beauty of, I think, and also the topic of this conversation, that I think some people feel like you, and therefore they're starting to move away because now alternatives exist.
Yeah.
Where um, you have the equivalent of, I guess, the one that has grown the fastest, but which would be Perplexity, that
Yeah.
really just spits things out in a very simple, nifty way and answers your question and gives you links to it. So it's a cool way like that. And then, I mean, we're starting to reach also sort of, AI modeling sort of 2.0 that is trained on specific data, and therefore you will be able to go to specific sort of LLMs to answer your specific problems.
Yeah.
which
No,
is, which is a complete opposite experience, because I mean, indirectly you're training this model to sort of give you things that you are interested in from an
so
angle that you would like to have it.
in our episode, in the title, we mentioned TikTok, mentioned YouTube, Reddit, generative AI. But at the end of the day, when it comes to SEO, we also talk about budgets, right? Like you cannot do everything unless you have a budget that allows you to do everything. So many users in our episode, they might start asking us, where, if I have a limited budget for my SEO, where should I start, right? And if I use common sense, which is what I have, I'm a paid media expert, right? I would be like, okay, let's look at a number game. How many people perform a search on Google every day? How many people are on YouTube every day? How many people are on TikTok and Reddit, etc.? And then or any other AI platform. And then I start thinking about what are the platforms though where this user is there with an intent. So it is definitely not with an intent on YouTube unless it's looking at how to video. So it's a small percentage. It is definitely not with an intent on TikTok. They're probably there to watch funny videos. So essentially, I start saying Google is a very good plan because although their AI solution might not be the most used, I believe it's called Gemini, what Google has. However, they do have a search engine that is probably the most viewed page in the world every day. So essentially, with all the things that are coming up, it might come down to the same old thing, which is you might want to invest your time initially on Google because of that relation. But what's your take there? If somebody were to come to you and say, I have a limited amount of resources, where should I invest them first?
I think it depends on the nature of your business. So I think if the website is important, um, then you should really work on your website as a means. But there are those from a maybe more of a B2B angle, or those that sort of tackle more of a prosumer point of view, that actually requires like demo videos, or like this one that could sort of be run in a playback. That if you do it nifty, you can then actually you already are creating content, and that type of content could maybe be either video,
Yeah.
and therefore it might actually make more sense for you, rather than sort of sub optimizing a website that actually has 0 searches today, because it will be a long ride, but versus actually going into YouTube. and actually start optimizing your YouTube videos and actually starting to improve and drive like more of a funnel that way, of both those that starting to discover you, but also with that have a bit more of an acquisition mind in mind, because they've really seen something that they like.
No, that makes sense. But I guess probably it comes down to also, do you have the resources to optimize YouTube? Because on YouTube you need good videos, right? Like you do need good content.
Exactly. I think like I guess what I meant was if you're already in the process,
Ah,
meaning
okay.
you are creating these type of demo videos, or you creating engagements of sort, or there's a demo of a new feature in your product that
Yeah.
you're launching, and you actually already have a pretty solid community of like users, and now it's more to sort of get out of that community by actually starting to sub optimize and optimize for YouTube. And I mean, note here, and I think it's the importance here is as well, considering sort of what we're talking about. YouTube, you could have optimized for a long time now. It's nothing new, but
Yeah.
I think often forgotten about. And many think that the same principles to how you optimize for your website applies, but it isn't.
So Alex, I would like to do a concrete example, and this is just like us brainstorming, of course, right? Let's assume an electrician in Miami comes to me and is like, hey, I would like when people are searching about issues they're having, for example, my breaker keeps turning off by itself. Most likely you're gonna get an AI answer nowadays. And this guy will be like, I would like to show up as a link there. So what would be the steps, right, to get there? Like, of course, most likely content, meaning you need to have a page talking about the breaker going off. It is going to be relevancy, most likely, meaning that you need to be local, so your local presence needs to be clear on Google, Google My Business, etc. But if we were to brainstorm about that, what would give this electrician in Miami the best chance to show up in that, in your opinion? I would say definitely a page, right? A page that talks about Miami, that talks about the
Yeah,
issues.
I mean that's also in terms of how you build that particular landing page will need to be centered around keyword specific terms
Yeah,
that that are being used in like a very geo specific area of sort of Miami and suburbs, and you can sort of extrapolate that type of information, and then start sort of creating content around that. Um,
backlinks, do you think they help in this case? I would say probably they might have some influence, right?
And no, I mean 100%. I think a couple of very strong backlinks, and I mean those. So backlinks are measured from 0 to 100 in terms of domain authority, like DR. And so when we speak about backlinks, it's not all backlinks that are good. It's those that are closer to 100 that are good, and those that are below 20, one would almost call toxic.
Yeah.
And and so you would like to work sort of on the upper quantile, and so like if you're sort of getting just a couple of those, one or two relatively high domain backlinks can help sort of the value of your website significantly rank for plumbing in Miami.
Interesting, because that brings me to another topic which you mentioned, which is TikTok. Because when you mention people SEO on TikTok, they're like, "Are you out of your mind? You cannot do SEO on TikTok." But well, like I mean, SEO might be search engine optimization. We can call in this case SMOs, social media optimization, if you say so, right? But essentially, what we're talking about when you get to TikTok is the ability to get your content seen without the need to pay for it. Now, SEO on TikTok is a completely different beast than SEO on Google.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, I think that again, that's again the beauty of, and I think why one shouldn't stare oneself and say that SEO is dead or is like Google is slowly but surely sort of digging that grave. I think it's an evolutionary step that
Yeah.
there is quite a big leap of particularly younger population that are on TikTok. They're not on Google.
Yeah,
They
and
trust TikTok
I wanted
more.
to share a strategy that I use
Yeah.
on TikTok for SEO, which it's kind of interesting because of the question I got from one of my clients not too long ago. Because essentially, what I told him is one of the strategies you can implement to increase your SEO on TikTok is to have as many people as possible post content about yourself, whether they are UGC or people that you even pay to create content for your products. And he said, oh, that's not SEO, because SEO you don't need to pay somebody to create content. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you have a content writer. You're not paying the content writer to write content. You have an SEO team. You're paying your SEO team. So essentially, he came to a realization: when you have a user-generated content that you pay for, it's not that different than paying a writer to write an article. Because I was like, it's just a different way of doing things. Because now that you have, let's say, 10 UGC or 10 influencers posting your content on their feed, this is exactly what SEO does. It puts the content without the need of a pay-per-click system in front of as many people as possible, right?
But the thing here is that the beauty here, though, if you do it organically, there are, I think, like at least 3 simple rules when you start talking about TikTok.
Yeah.
You need engagement quickly, because that's like one of the determined factors. Then there is keyword research.
For the hashtags, right?
Keyword research comes first, because you still have keywords and you can actually get search volumes for what keywords that are being used, both like more hyper local on a nation level and then on a global level. So you can start with that. So it's actually more on how you actually write actually your sort of prompt. And then, Rocco, you have the hashtags that will also dictate it.
Yeah.
But the spur of it is need, even though you've done all this right, you still need people to start engaging with it. So, I mean, even a simple, maybe a little hack is to have a WhatsApp group or any type of means that you may have. Like if you post, have a closest 20 to 50 people, try to get them to engage with it quick, and then it will spin off.
And I guess, Alex, it would have still, it's about also the content, right? Because when I think about TikTok from a performance standpoint, I think that users on TikTok might, more than, oh, my product is for sale, is about, oh, look how cool my product or service is. That you need to grab their attention in a different way than you probably would with SEO. So I guess when you say engagement, you're also referring to, you got to split test your content to see what works better. So maybe, and I don't know if that's a technique that many companies use, right? But let's say I'm working on SEO for a TikTok brand. Well, my first guess is use paid media to find what kind of content gets the most engagement, and then go heavy organic on that typology of content. Is it an approach that you think has some value to it for our users?
I mean, yes. I mean, I think I've from a client point of view and sort of gauging with TikTok has been very. I've been I've honestly been a bit on the sidelines, because it's been such an important aspect of creating right type of content, organic, user
Yeah.
generated content, because you're gauging with a very, people are in a different mindset when you gauge there, and therefore you need to come off as authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you do some Google searches or maybe some AI searches prompts, you can easily pick up on some bigger brands globally that didn't really pull that one off too nicely, because they thought that using the same thing that you had on almost like Facebook to Instagram to TikTok would go just as smooth.
Oh, not at all.
So I mean, experimentation is of course key. I mean, you need to constantly invent what you're doing, and then constantly sort of, you know, be able to rule out, okay, this tactic did not work well, this is going better, so let's double up on this, and then start sort of testing more here. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, we started actually building niftier funnels from TikTok more to website too, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
That it actually is working. But I think it's also, you need to be very precise just in terms of, you know, what type of demographic are you after. You know, if you're after someone that is probably 40 plus, you won't really hit that many in terms of volume. But you're after sort of the segment of maybe 18 to 34, and you'll have a lot bigger one.
And Alex, like, video content to content, right? I know you're a big fan of Reddit here. And Reddit is probably, again, a completely different beast, which goes back to the initial remark I made. Some companies might need to choose where to focus on, because we went from AI to video. Now we're going to video, which is different than the one on YouTube. Then we go back to content, but in this case, content that is commented and people can actually leave their opinion, etc. Many people probably that are listening to us are curious about, how do I get started with SEO on Reddit? Like, do I create a subreddit about my product? What if my subreddit, nobody cares about it? Do I rather join conversation rather than opening my subreddit? Like, have you had, do you have like almost like a quick, like 2 tips for people there? Because it's a very hard topic.
I think number one here, why Reddit, I think, appeared as an one massive one, is that Google and Reddit agreed that Gemini's data would be allowed to be trained on Reddit. I think let's start with that knowledge. That means in exchange, Reddit's results, subreddit, Reddits, and so forth, would be indexed in Google.
Yeah.
So I think the easy part of sort of, SEO up your own website is that you actually don't really care. You are your own moderator to some extent.
Yeah, correct.
While once you get into Reddit, you need to be authentic. You need to be real. You need to engage, or else people will not like what you're saying, and they will tell you very quickly. So in the big picture here is, I think it depends on, maybe, do you have an already existing community? Do you fit into a particular niche? I would start my tactic, not strategy, but more tactic, of dipping my toes into it. Contribute, see how it's being received, and then sort of evolve on it.
Alex, is that fair to say? And that's an interesting question, because we're both agency owners, that Reddit we can consult on, but it is better handled by an internal team, because it looks like every word you say is going to be judged immediately. And in some industries, it is very tricky to say the right thing if you're not deeply knowledgeable about all the small things.
I think, we actually do work with Reddit, but we also do have, it's like we go pretty deep in our relationship with our clients, and where we've ended up almost writing their brand guidelines and sort of how and what they are, and therefore we know them almost better than them.
But let's assume it's the medical industry, right? Which you need to be compliant and all of that. So in that case, probably like I personally wouldn't feel comfortable writing any response for them, right?
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be doing some stuff in the US for the medical industry, particularly in diabetes.
Okay.
And the community that is created around that is enough. So if you have happy clients, the only thing that you can actually enable is creating a subreddit.
Okay.
And then you will actually have your own moderators, because you often have pretty strong brand evangelists that
Okay.
really are slowly very strong to you. And for this one brand that I worked with, I noticed that, I mean, the sort of the diabetes community extremely strong, tight knitted, supporting one another, very positive. And then if you also had a product, which I had the fortunate luck to work with, that added additional value, hey, you just presented them the platform and they did the rest. They
That's
answered
great.
one another's questions. They you know, they and then you very simply wrote a couple of rules that this group is made for, this subreddit is only made for this. So I mean, you can throw out people that are breaking the rules as well. That's
Okay.
part of.
So you're basically striving for a self-managed platform at that point. That would be
Yeah,
that makes sense.
because I mean that's any company's and brands dream.
No, fair
Having a self-fulfilling sort of social existing network that actually speaks, argues for you
no, that makes
without
sense.
you needing to actually get yourself involved.
No, that's a nice scenario. I like it. And
That's
Alex,
why
as
I'm
all
like, that's why I want to like flip. Like I think the medical industry is actually the very opposite and has that, because people that have serious diseases that are chronical,
now,
they support one another.
what I was thinking about was, let's say somebody gives a bad advice, and is the company gonna be held liable because they are the one that created subreddit? But I guess I live too long in the US that I become paranoid about lawyers, Alex.
I mean, yeah, they always win no matter what. So
I know, right? But Alex, we're getting toward the end of our time again. It has been such an interesting topic today. I really liked it. We have,
I guess to leave on that note, the thing here is that this is a dotted line. This has just started.
yeah,
And I think also for those that may not have all that stuff on the website and etc., you have opportunities with these other channels that very few have actually tested.
yeah, and it's about learning how to properly use them, Alex. Because for example, people might have thought that on Reddit it was a lot of work, and you're saying, hey, if you do it smart, people do the work for you. So I think that was very valuable for them to understand that each platform has their own set of rules, and it never harms to talk to somebody that has done it before, right? I don't
No,
work on Reddit SEO, so I ask Alex, right? Alex might ask me questions about PPC sometimes, but it's all about understanding the best way to do things, because you're essentially not committing the mistakes that you would commit. Everybody does that, of doing it the first time.
correct. That's the beauty of community and having a solid network, or having like more of this type of thing. I mean, so if you guys have questions, I mean, do shout. Um, we'll answer directly in sort of on LinkedIn or sort of your preferred sort of podcast sort of medium, or just reach out directly with a DM or
Perfect.
direct message.
Thank you so much, Alex. And everybody, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Rocco.
for joining. Bye bye.
Ciao.